Today we're diving into my tier list rankings of the quarterback position for fantasy football. Keep in mind that this will be for your traditional 4-point passing touchdown settings, so the rushing quarterbacks tend to have an edge over the pocket passers. And with that disclaimer out of the way, at the number one spot we have Josh Allen. Since 2020, Allen has finished as the QB1 in 2 of the last 3 seasons and hasn't finished outside of the top 2 at the position since 2019. Allen has the elite combination of passing touchdowns as well as rushing volume that makes him a cheat code in fantasy football. Now at the number 2 spot, it's Jalen Hurts. With arguably the best O-line in the NFL, Hurts found the end zone with his legs 13 times last season. For context, the next closest was Justin Fields with 8 rushing touchdowns. Hurts is continuing to develop as a passer and has the offensive weapons surrounding him to support that next step in his evolution as a thrower. He finished last season as QB3, and I don't expect that to change too much assuming he stays healthy. The final QB in this tier, the face of the NFL, obviously it's Patrick Mahomes. Mahomes led the NFL in both passing yards and touchdowns last season, and he finished with the 9th most rushing yards among quarterbacks as well, showing he's no slouch in that department either. In tier 2, I'm going with Lamar Jackson. Now back in 2019 during his MVP season, we saw what Lamar can do, throwing 36 passing touchdowns, 7 rushing touchdowns, and over 1,200 rushing yards. Jackson has the elite ceiling you look for in fantasy football, but the thing that keeps him outside of tier 1 is his inability to stay healthy over the last 2 seasons. Both campaigns have been capped at 12 games, and that really hurts his case for being the first QB drafted in fantasy. Next up at number 5, we've got Justin Fields. Fields has already been mentioned in this video for his rushing upside, but in addition to 8 rushing touchdowns last season, he also had over 1,100 yards on the ground to go along with that. With just 17 passing touchdowns, we saw very similar numbers to Jalen Hurts in his sophomore season, and while Chicago's O-line and pass catchers are not on the same level as Philly's, Justin Fields still has the ability to build on what he accomplished last season, now entering year 3. Moving on to tier 3, we're going to start with your girlfriend's favorite quarterback, and that's Joe Burrow. We saw what Joe could do last season, putting up very respectable numbers through the air, with 4,500 plus passing yards and 36 passing touchdowns. We also got to see his rushing numbers improve. As last season marked the second year removed from his major knee injury that he suffered as a rookie back in 2020, Burrow rushed for just over 250 yards and ran in a career-high 5 rushing touchdowns. Now, there is some concern with his strained calf at the beginning of training camp. However, I feel that there is still enough time for him to recover in order to be 100% for week 1. If you're watching this closer to September 7th and we still have concerns about Burrow's injury status, then I could justify moving him down a couple of spots on this list. Justin Herbert is next on the list, and I want to make clear that I strongly believe last season was a fluke, given his underwhelming performance relative to what we've come to expect from him. This is a QB that finished as quarterback 2 in his second season back in 2021, passing for over 5,000 yards and 38 passing touchdowns, while still rushing for just over 300 yards and 3 rushing touchdowns as well. His supporting cast in Keenan Allen and Mike Williams were often injured last year, but with the new addition of first-round rookie pick Quentin Johnston, I trust Herbert to return to form and deliver top 8 upside at the position. The last man in this tier for me is Trevor Lawrence. T-Law took a major step up in his second season last year, finishing as QB8. Now with the addition of Calvin Ridley, Lawrence has an even stronger supporting cast to help elevate his game even further. We're a third of the way through this list, and I want to take the time to remind you that if you've made it this far in the video, please consider subscribing to the channel and for more fantasy football content. This is something I'm extremely passionate about, and I will continue uploading videos throughout the season to hopefully help you win your leagues. Now, entering tier 4, the remaining quarterbacks here all have their fair share of question marks, to the point where I highly recommend leaving your draft with any of the first 8 listed here to really feel secure at the position. At number 9, Deshaun Watson is my next ranked QB. Watson was a top 5 fantasy quarterback for 3 consecutive seasons between 2018 and 2020. The year is now 2023, my friends, and Deshaun Watson looked extremely rusty after serving an 11-game suspension last season. However, it wasn't all bad, as we did see Watson looking more like his old self, at least on the field, in weeks 17 and 18, where he put up solid numbers, finishing as the weekly QB8 and QB6 respectively. Cleveland has 230 million reasons to put Watson in a position to succeed, and for that reason I have him ranked highest amongst QBs with question marks. Tier 5 has a variety of guys who could break into the top 10 finishers by the season's end. At number 10, it's Dak Prescott. Injuries have been Dak's greatest deterrent over the last 3 seasons, with only one fully healthy season in 2021, where he finishes QB8. We saw Dak's rushing volume as well as his efficiency as a rusher improve last season. And that is to be expected, as last season marked the second year removed from his fractured ankle that he suffered back in 2020. Prior to this injury, Dak consistently put up 250 to 350 rushing yards per season, and returning to that level of performance would significantly help him in establishing himself as a top 10 fantasy option once again. The addition of Brandon Cooks to this offense as a much improved wide receiver 2 over the likes of Noah Brown doesn't hurt either. Tua Tagovailoa is number 11 on my list. Similar to Prescott, injuries have plagued Tua's recent seasons, most notably suffering multiple concussions in 2022 to the point of being hospitalized for a brief period of time. Since then, he has signed a 4-year extension to stay with the Miami Dolphins, and in doing so, solidified himself as their QB of the future. Tua has one of, if not the most explosive receiving duos in the NFL, with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. If Tua can put together a healthy campaign in 2023, he has the individual talent and supporting cast necessary to be a top 10 fantasy option. Representing the 12th man, I have Geno Smith. Going into last season, everyone, myself included, was fading Seahawks pass catchers in drafts because the QB situation seemed so uncertain at the time. We didn't know if Drew Lock, a quarterback who had never been good to that point in his career, or Geno Smith, a quarterback who had never been good to that point in his career, would be leading this offense. Since then, Geno has proven the doubters wrong in a major way, throwing for over 4,200 yards and 30 touchdowns, as well as rushing for over 350 yards, allowing him to finish last season as QB5. Now with the addition of first-round rookie pick Jackson Smith-Njigba and second-rounder Zach Charbonnet, the Seahawks are confidently building around Geno Smith, making him a strong candidate to finish as a top 10 fantasy option once again. At number 13, it's Daniel Jones. Jones finished last season as QB9 with minimal improvement as a passer. What really propelled him up in ranking was twofold, mainly staying healthy, playing in 16 games, and his significantly increased rushing contribution, just over 700 rushing yards, and tying with Josh Allen for third most rushing touchdowns at 7. The addition of Darren Waller should give Jones a reliable pass catcher to funnel targets through, and a second year in Brian Daboll's system on offense should allow Jones to improve as a passer as well. To round out this tier, Aaron Rodgers is next on the list. With a change of scenery, a bolstered receiving room, and a reunion with his former offensive coordinator Nathaniel Hackett, Rodgers has the tools at his disposal to return to top 10 form in fantasy football. The historical data surrounding 40-year-old starting quarterbacks is realistically the biggest deterrent from Rodgers being ranked higher on my list. If you believe Rodgers will be a statistical outlier in this regard, then I'm fine with you moving him up closer to the top of this tier rather than the bottom. In Tier 6, I've got Jared Goff to lead things off. Last season was the best version of Goff we've seen since his 2018 season, where the least interesting Super Bowl I've ever witnessed took place. Go Pats, by the way. But in all seriousness, I believe Jared Goff will continue on last season's momentum and be someone who pushes for top 12 to 15 upside, especially valuable in 2-quarterback or deeper 1-quarterback leagues. Jameson Williams is serving a 6-game suspension to start the NFL season, so with a lesser supporting cast out the gates, Goff is someone to consider trading for after the first month of NFL action rather than someone I'm looking to draft in 12-team league or smaller. Kirk Cousins is my 16th ranked quarterback. The Minnesota Vikings finished the season 13-4, and yet their point differential was -3. On the surface, the Vikings season appeared more impressive than it really was. The same can be said for Kirk Cousins' season in fantasy. Finishing last season as QB6 despite throwing fewer touchdowns and more interceptions than his previous 2 seasons, where he was the QB11, indicates to me that Cousins is trending in the wrong direction as a player, entering his 12th season as a pro. While his passing yards went up slightly compared to those from 2020 and 2021, his efficiency as a passer also declined last season. Next up, we got the physical freak that is Anthony Richardson. With the recent news that Richardson will be the Colts' Week 1 starter, the hype is at an all-time high for the rookie drafted number 4 overall this past April. With that being said, outside of best ball formats, Richardson is going to be one of the toughest players to project in his rookie season. In terms of draft capital, the best case comparison I can come up with for Richardson would be Kyler Murray's rookie season. Now, I understand that physically these two players don't comp all that well. However, within recent memory, Kyler had the best fantasy finish of any first-round QB at QB6 back in 2019. The questions surrounding Richardson's accuracy as a passer lead me to believe that he will sooner take after rookie performances more similar to that of Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, and Justin Fields, which, yes, elite company for sure, but all players gifted with excellent athleticism who struggled as rookies with poor passing accuracy. Speaking of Kyler Murray, he's my next QB in this tier. There's no denying how talented Kyler is, but with a torn ACL suffered in mid-December last season, at the time of this recording, his timeline for return to play is still unknown. We've talked about how these players typically show greatest recovery in the second season following a major injury, so it's best to lower expectations for Kyler this year and then ramp up those expectations heading into the 2024 season. But with that being said, I still prefer a less than fully healthy Kyler to any of the remaining 6 QBs on this list. Russell Wilson leads off Tier 7 for me as my 19th ranked quarterback. I believe in Sean Payton's ability to coach up this team better than Nathaniel Hackett was able to manage in 2022, but I'm not convinced that Russell Wilson is poised for any major turnaround with this change at head coach. The fact that Wilson has never finished worse in fantasy than he did last season is both a testament to the quality of he as a quarterback, however, it also points to a concerning trend. People forget that Wilson had never missed a game as a pro until 2021 when he fractured his finger on his throwing hand. Since then, he has taken a significant step back in his passing ability, just not looking like he used to. With more injuries piling up in 2022, the 11-year veteran seems to be aging rapidly. Derek Carr is next in line for me. Through 9 seasons in the NFL, Carr has never finished outside of the top 20 in fantasy. He is the picture of consistency, albeit residing in mediocrity. A career best finish of QB 12 all the way back in 2016, Carr is simply a professional quarterback. He will have a neutral effect on your chances, neither winning or losing you your league in deeper formats. My final quarterback for this tier is Matthew Stafford. The magic that the Rams were able to capture in order to win it all during the 2021 season cannot be understated. Stafford struggled mightily with injuries last season, and now it seems as though his best years are clearly in the rearview. The offense, outside of Cooper Kupp, of course, is one of the weakest in the NFL. However, I do expect him to outperform his underwhelming QB 32 finish from last season and should be a starting option in Superflex leagues. The remainder of this tier list belongs to the young guys, hungry for the opportunity to make a name for themselves in this deep and skilled position. First up, we have Mr. Irrelevant, Brock Purdy. Not doing anything exceptionally good or bad, Purdy has the chance to rise in the ranks based largely on the talent and coaching surrounding him. His rushing value is essentially non-existent with 13 yards on 22 attempts, but with a touchdown to interception ratio of 13-4 through 9 games as a rookie, thrust into the starting role out of necessity, I believe there's something there worth exploring in deep formats. Kenny Pickett comes in at 22 for me. In 13 games played last season, he put up a negative touchdown to interception ratio of 7-9, but showed potential with his rushing upside, totaling just under 240 rushing yards and 3 rushing touchdowns. With an improved O-line and youth surrounding him in pass catchers George Pickens and Pat Freiermuth, as well as the more experienced veteran Deontay Johnson, there is a legitimate upside for Pickett to improve on his meager rookie campaign. Jordan Love is the final addition to this tier list. He's been serving as Aaron Rodgers' backup for 3 seasons so far, and finally has the chance to prove he was worth a first-round pick back in 2020. I've strategically ordered these young quarterbacks in order of the quality of their supporting cast, and in my opinion, the Packers are third among this group. That may be controversial with where Christian Watson is going in drafts, but I think once you look beyond him, there's not a whole lot there to be inspired by. An aging running back in Aaron Jones and several day 2 and 3 wide receivers to round out your pass catchers makes it really tough for me to rank Love any higher on this list, given the uphill battle he has ahead of him this season. All right, well, that concludes my top 24 quarterback tier list ranking. I hope you liked the video, learned some things, and remember to subscribe for more fantasy football content. Until next time, bye-bye.